Welcome back, Alejandro. Thank you for being willing to share your knowledge of what you gained about Microsoft. And obviously, Microsoft is something many of us use in our everyday lives. And it'll be interesting to see what you share with us today. So thank you again and take it away.
Hello, Michelle. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure again, as we always said. And as you say, Microsoft is something of a daily lives, but different from Apple, which we did a time ago. Is a different kind of company, even though they're both competing in the winning the biggest market cap in the world. I think Apple is loved by many, but to me, Microsoft is a little like Geico, like Buffett says. Geico is something that I mean, you are not inspired to get car insurance, but you are inspired to drive, so you need it. So Microsoft, to me, in certain aspects of their business, is kind of like that. So let's get started with it.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do, Microsoft has three different services and products. So cloud-based solutions, operating systems, cross-device productivity and collaboration applications, business solutions, desktop, gaming, and they also design and sell PCs, tablets, gaming, entertainment, and consoles. And the interesting part is this for like the past years, this revenue income is divided in these three segments like kind of the same way. But again, as we know and we've seen before, the cloud is taking part of everybody's mind, especially the big guys. So this segment has been growing a lot, and we're going to see a little of this later on. So the reportable segments, as I said, just better define productivity and business processes. So this segment consists of products and services, a portfolio of communication, and this part includes Office Commercial, which I think 95% of people have used it, for not saying 100, Office Consumer, LinkedIn, and Dynamics. Dynamics, I don't know if most people know, but it's a CRM, kind of like Salesforce, but they have it. Intelligent cloud, as I said before, a lot of people are competing in this segment. Amazon, Google, and a lot of people. And I'm going to show a graph later on, which is very, very interesting for this part. And I mean, their cloud is called Azure, and a more personal computer, which consists of products and services that put customers at the center of the experience with technology. And again, this I think is what got this big company, which was Windows. I mean, a very, very strong name in the world. And I think is what has given them that chance to invest in other companies we're going to see later on. I mean, this is a company, and I'm going to mention it probably several times, is to me very hard to predict, even though it's like very strong, very well known. But I think their redeployment of cash is so difficult because they keep buying stuff, and I just believe every buy that you do is not always going to work, especially with technology, because they pay this high premium for goodwill. And yeah, many times you pay $1 billion, and this new company that you buy is worth 50 billion in a couple of years. But
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, what happens is that billion goes to zero, which I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
Didn't they just buy Activision Blizzard? Like they were able to finalize that purchase after, a lot of the regulators were questioning it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they finalized this in October, and as you might remember, Mr. Buffett had a play on that because I mean the price they were going to pay, I think it was, I don't know, 89, and the stock was selling for 65, so he just bought this to do an arbitrage, I think is how he
Yeah,
calls it.
yep, it's called arbitrage. Yeah, for sure. I mean, so that was a pretty easy way if you could get in low enough, like say someone bought it at 70 something dollars and it closed at $95 that Microsoft bought it at, you easily made a good return. So that could have been something a lot of people might have done, but at the same time there was a little uncertainty because the regulators could say, "No, Microsoft, we don't want you to become monopolistic in the gaming." So that arbitrage opportunity, it wasn't a sure bet. Some people had to know and have faith that that was going to work out.
Yeah, absolutely. But I believe also that maybe they, like Mr. Buffett saw as an asymmetric bet in the way that even if they didn't sell it, the company was strong enough, or
Yeah, like it is worth like that much already. And like other investors I know, like Phil Town, also valued it like they thought it was a good deal at, at the price around there, $60, $70, that it should be worth more. So yeah, it makes sense that it was a good value. And it looks like for Buffett and others, they did well in that bet.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sad we missed it because I missed it. So the competitors, I divided in the three segments. The productivity and business processes, they compete with Apple, Cisco Systems, Meta, Google. In the cloud, Amazon, Google. In the more personal computer, Amazon, Apple, Meta, Google, and Tencent. So as we see, I mean, the competitors are huge and very tough. But as we have seen through the weeks, I feel every one of these big guys have their own segment where they dominate and where they are able to get all the profits from and be able to invest in other companies. Like, for example, as we saw in previous videos, Google gets it from search. Basically, they make all the money in search, and the rest is just like these bets. I mean, and they're investing big in the cloud, but they haven't been able to take big market share from these big guys, which are in this moment AWS with Amazon and Azure with Microsoft. So these big guys, I mean, they just competing, and this cloud war is very interesting. So a little the income statement, as we've seen, even though they're huge, in 2020 they have $143 billion in sales, and 2 years later they almost hit that 200 billion. I mean, this is crazy. But as we've seen, a big part of this is based in the cloud, because the products, as we've seen, they haven't grown much, but the services part have grown a lot. And as I mentioned before, and probably this is the reason they cost so much and they are the market cap is so big, is the margins keep growing. Even though they went from 143 to 200, I mean, that's like a 33% increase just doing, as I have a friend that says napkin math, like quick math. In their net income, the growth is much bigger, almost 60%. Wow, it's crazy. So I don't know how they do it, but they just keep becoming more profitable. And I guess part of that is because they have these products and services that the people need.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for sure. Like I think probably, with more businesses using Microsoft's cloud services and Azure, and it's an alternative to the Amazon Web Services. So if you need cloud services, I think most businesses usually turn to either Microsoft or Amazon, like with those needs. So it really maybe depends on the competitive price points, like what each organization is looking for. So the more that businesses rely on cloud, I can see that service and cloud offering expanding and driving a lot of their market share, because a lot of Microsoft stuff has been kind of the same, right? Like you're kind of using the same stuff like PowerPoint, Word, Excel. Like there's not a lot of changes happening there compared to just more people getting on the cloud, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also wanted to mention for Microsoft, I mean, how Bill Gates is such a great, I feel, capital allocator. He understands business, kind of like not Jobs, more Jeff Bezos. I feel they both were really smart allocating capital, and that part I think has helped and get the culture to where it is. And even though he retired many years ago.
Yeah, and Satya Nadella, the current CEO, is still living up to, the legacy, I guess. He's still allocating capital well, it looks like.
Absolutely. And now that you mention him, I'm just going to tell a quick funny story that for preparing for this, I was looking at this interview that David Rubenstein did to him. So David Rubenstein asked him that if when he gets to the shareholder meetings, everybody makes ovations of how well he's done, how the stock is done. And Sasha is, I mean, he's a funny character because he says, no, what I must get is just people asking me to go to their house to fix their computer. So it's a funny story. I mean, the guy
That's
has
that's
pretty,
hilarious. They treat him like a IT support.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh
So
wow.
it's pretty good humor
That's
on the
funny.
guy. To the balance sheet, as I always say, I mean, I think the numbers are where you have to look to understand companies. I pointed to start out with total current assets is very big compared to current liabilities. And more than that, the goodwill, I mean, that's $68 billion. And this is before Activision, so 2022, because Activision was closed today. So the goodwill this year is probably going to be above 100 billion. And again, this goodwill is something super interesting because some companies amortize it. But the thing is, like, as Buffett says, goodwill is an asset that can many times grow in value, even though in accounting terms it keeps going down, which is why I feel it's so difficult sometimes to understand these big tech companies, because the P is so high, but many times it's because a lot of the spending this type of things is put in the income statement in the current year, but obviously the goodwill is not really losing value, but gaining value. So this to me is,
Yeah. And it's like a lot of intangible assets, like how, like with software businesses, at first glance, looking at, say, GAAP accounting principles and other common financial analysis metrics, it would look as if they're expensive, but it's only because maybe the accounting doesn't capture appropriately exactly how some of these software companies are using the things that they buy, like how the value in something that's not tangible can grow. So it's a very weird way to try to deal with it in terms of both accounting and then as an investor to try to value it. Like we almost have to put a little bit of accounting to the side and kind of credit back in some way, like when people are doing their valuation of giving some of these companies more credit for what they've done. And I think one book that I think was helpful is a book by an author and investor named Adam Cecil. And I think it's called Where the Money Is or something like that. Like that book, I think can help us to revalue businesses. So kind of like even though it's challenging dealing with some of these accounting metrics, it's kind of something we need to upgrade our way of thinking about software businesses.
yeah, absolutely. I put a good example with what you just said, and is that, for example, a sales guy, I mean, with this type of products, like for example, with what Microsoft is selling these days, they get these like 10-year contracts. But let's say me as a salesman get paid, I don't know, $1,000 a week for doing, like, going to a new company and selling my product. So that $1,000 a week goes to the income statement for this year, but I build a relationship for 10 years. So my cost as a salesman was put to this year, but we're gonna keep getting profits in the coming 10 years. So different from like a restaurant that he just, I mean, obviously the labor that the waiter put on today, I mean, it has to go to this year, because that's, I mean, it's not gonna like span during the years like it happens, like as you said, with this technology type of companies.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And when businesses contract with some of these software technologies, they don't stop using it, just like the CRM Salesforce. Like if someone contracted with Salesforce, they get it for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we see right here in the balance sheet, one of the last few rows, it says short-term or unearned revenue. So which is like these big contracts that, I mean, this is short-term. There's long-term that they have revenue that they already collected, but and they know they're going to collect within time, but is going to be paid through the year. So I mean, always this cash flow effect that we are looking in business, just getting the money first or getting the contract that you are able to predict your revenues in the coming years. So the cash flow, as we see, is growing. They've been different from Apple. They don't invest that much on purchasing their stock. I mean, they do, but I remember Apple was almost like the last 10 years, it was 3 years, it was around 200 billion. Microsoft is around, if you add quick math, 80, but they do pay a little more on dividends. And as I said before, in the little part where it says acquisition of companies, I mean, they are very, very, they're always looking for new things. And to me, that part makes it a little difficult because it's difficult to see how this is going to play out. Obviously, Microsoft has done a wonderful job, but I think, for example, when they bought Skype, they pay a lot of money, and I think it was a disaster. I don't know if you remember a
Yeah.
little on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how, Skype used to be one of the at the forefront of talking online. Like when there wasn't a lot of options, like in the 2000s, it was popular to use that more, to do face to face. And then other ones started coming around like WhatsApp or, now I know people use Microsoft Teams usually in business, but like, just because something seems like a very useful technology or even like Zoom, like, the how the business actually plays out could be different. And like I think even I've heard Facebook sometimes struggling to monetize WhatsApp. So it seems like a useful thing, right? We get a lot of utility out of like all of these video sharing webinar platforms, but how does the business actually work, and like what are the competitors doing? There's a lot of factors at play, right? So yeah, like I'm sure Microsoft is doing their best, but you can't always predict how the market will really react or treat certain businesses going into the future.
No, absolutely. And I think to add a little here, that is why we try to do this, because I really think looking at the numbers, is one thing what you perceive and one thing when you look at the numbers. And I always I always come to the restaurants, but
Hmm.
when I used to be in Colombia, we had a restaurant that everybody at lunch will get really, really crowded. So I think people thought, I mean, we were just banking on it. But honestly, the fixed cost and the location was so expensive that we were losing money on that thing. So again, it's a little just, I don't know. I just always use the analogy
Yeah.
of restaurants, but I mean that's how it is. So again,
Yeah, that's a great example. It makes sense. Like it's not what it always seems, and it makes me wonder if Microsoft goes into more detail specifically of which services are earning more or less than others.
yeah, in the I do have a little part that it comes from the annual report that we're gonna be able to see on, and also the sales per product are presented, so that's really cool to be able to predict it better. So here's the graph I was talking about before, and as we see, I mean, Amazon, this is the last, I think like 3 years, 4 years, I cut the years. But what's interesting here is how Microsoft has been growing like crazy. Another interesting fact is, as you see, others are going down. So basically, I mean, even Google going up, Microsoft going up, and Amazon is maintaining. So this is a very, very cool war. I mean, cool for us to see and to understand, but absolutely, it's just who's going to win, not sure. I was reading a bit, and one of the interesting things is that Amazon charges by the hour, Microsoft charges by the minute. So this is some of the
Wow.
those little things that um, are interesting.
Well, it's
And
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And Alibaba is there. Who knows what's going to happen? It looks like it
Yeah.
keeps growing, but
I know they seem to have plateaued a little bit. They were going up and now they are kind of not really going places. Is this fairly recent, like the time frame of this
yeah,
chart?
yeah, I think this graph was it was until second quarter of 2023, so let's say June. I I
Yeah.
didn't find anything up to date today,
Hmm.
but this was the
Yeah. Okay, that's the closest. Yeah, but it's
yeah,
incredible how much Microsoft has grown because
yeah.
it makes sense. Like if you're like say you're a business and you're using Microsoft for a lot of your things, why use Amazon when Amazon's not giving you an operating platform and all of your business tools? Like it can make sense that someone's just going to go to Microsoft for one-stop shopping.
No, totally. I totally agree with you. One-stop shopping, I think it just makes it easier. Again, analogy with business, but I mean, if you're a restaurant, you want to go with Cisco, that brings you everything. You don't want to be dealing with someone for the silverware, somebody for the napkin, somebody for a chicken. When they bring everything to you, it's just easier, and they both benefit because obviously there's a scale, so it's cheaper for them to bring it to you, give you a better price. So it's very hard to compete with these guys. I haven't really, I read the annual report for Zoom. I don't have it um that deep details in mind, but I just think for them, I mean, I don't know how they're going to compete with these big giants because I mean, this, I mean, Google and Microsoft, they bring that video thing to the party, and I don't know. We're using Zoom though. So
Yeah, we're lucky to have it for free. I mean, because some of the, I don't know if
oh,
you can record with like some of the other ones, like with Google Meet or with Microsoft Teams as just like a personal private person. Like I don't know if how that works, but you know, Zoom is just convenient. Everybody has been using it, so it's just easy. But they have that 40-minute limit, which is not so not so awesome sometimes if you're using the free version, but it's okay. I'm sure like, this is part of um like in investing. I like how um there's a natural cycle, as Charlie Munger put it, and maybe Buffett put it, where businesses grow. So, businesses will play out like humans do. Like there's an exciting beginning where we're first starting and growing, and then we mature and then kind of plateau, and then eventually, just like everything that's living, eventually it will have a demise. So, in business, for that might be sooner for some and longer for others. Like Coca-Cola has been around for such a long time, but other businesses like Kodak are not really, they're like a shadow of their former self.
yeah, that is totally true. So here is the segment that you were talking about, and these are, I mean, these are very interesting numbers because we can see, I mean, the revenue, but the operating income as well. So I mean, it's incredible how profitable they are. And again, the intelligent cloud is growing more than all the other guys and is becoming more profitable for them. So they're definitely doing a great job in this part. And as you said, I mean, for companies, I think it's becoming like um, the Geico insurance for cars for us. I mean, it's you basically in certain ways might need to be with Microsoft to be able to operate at the lowest cost and the more efficient way. That's how I got to see this company. So here's the sales by geography again. United States just is just the main guy, and I think that's why. I don't know. I don't know if you know how Buffett always says, "Oh, America is the greatest thing in the world," and have never been able to get him to explain that. Have you ever? Have you noticed
Like
how?
why America is the
Yeah,
best?
he always just puts everything on how America is just, I mean, just never bet against America. You know
Yeah.
how famous he is about that, and I mean, I
Hmm.
guess it's because all the income is here.
Yeah, well, and a lot of the services and products that we use, like America is 70% a consumer economy. So if we think about how much there's a lot of need in America still, like I don't know if you've heard about how, like in some rural places, they still don't have high speed, fast internet. So there's still a need even in this country that has already developed and grown so much. But um, maybe it's a combination of many factors. Like America is a great place to have a business. Like, if you can make it in America, you can make it anywhere. It's like the saying, like if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Like America has a lot of opportunity. So if people are willing to work hard and try to innovate, it's a great, the governance of the business environment is conducive to being able to expand. Like there's still opportunities to borrow debt if you want to put some money into initiatives to grow the business. So there's still some of that. Whereas like maybe in other countries, it might be a little bit more difficult to start a business or grow a business, depending on what some of the financial levers are. So in a way, like the US just seems like a lot of factors came together to make it a great breeding ground for business and enterprise.
Absolutely. So that's a really good explanation. Thank you, Michelle. So here's my product a little bit. Server and products and cloud. I mean, again, even though it's the biggest, it's growing. It looks like the fastest, definitely. And again, all these numbers, I think we haven't talked much about gaming. I think next year with the acquisitions of Activision, it might even pass Windows, maybe. I don't know, maybe. But because it's 8 billion behind Windows, but I mean, again, they spent 68 billion dollar in that, so I'm not really sure how much are they expecting. I'm not that familiar with how much net income Activision brings, but again, with them just like putting in their system, their
Mhm.
distribution and all. And I mean, gaming is become part of a lot of people's life. I mean, you meet people. I mean, I'm not close. I'm not a gamer or anything, but from the little I know, I mean, you just get to meet people all around the world, and even couples being formed there.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, it's just amazing how you can just connect and play, and it's sort of an addictive activity.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there definitely is like a rise of gaming in this country, and like with the advent of esports, like that also gives a lot of people something to do and a way to be social. Like it, in a way, maybe all the growth in gaming is somewhat of a response as well to social media because you can just be social for the sake of being social and posting on Instagram or TikTok, but you can also if you're engaged in this gaming world, it gives maybe people more of a deeper meaning and something that resonates, and they can truly connect with someone in a deeper way because they fought a similar battle. And it's not like just, oh, look at me posting a picture of my puppy, like on my social media. It's more engaging than just normal social media.
Absolutely, yeah, that is a great point. I agree with you. A little about the debt. I mean, again, they do have a little debt just to because when you see the rate of interest is so low that I mean, it's just crazy. They just have it, I guess, to keep investing, to have it on hand towards like whenever a good opportunity presents itself. It, I mean, they are able to take advantage a lot of how Buffett sees it.
Yeah, and
And
this would make it more of a Buffett style company that they have such low debt and don't really need it to grow. So that's always a win-win when you don't have a company that's so dependent on debt, like we saw with Domino's. Like if Microsoft can have some debt, but they're not chained to it, that's a great situation.
yeah, absolutely. And downwards, I put that the unearned revenue per segment. Again, this is, I mean, how I wish I could have a little a company like a little restaurant like that with all my food sold through the next 3 years. Sounds pretty cool. The acquisitions I put a little some of the most important, but again, you get to Windows gets I'm sorry, Microsoft has a place where you can see all the acquisitions. I mean, there's so many. I mean, it's crazy. But so these ones are some of the most important acquisitions they done through the years. Activision, as we said, by far the largest one. I I should have put the Sky, which I think was above 20 billion, but I forgot it. I guess they forgot it as well since they didn't restart that price. So yeah, this again is a company that is very concentrated in doing good acquisitions, and it is important for them. And this is a little my conclusion. Understand Microsoft is a confusing company to understand. And the reason I say it's a confusing company to understand is because even though they are in a constant changing segment in most of their segments, they do have stuff like whenever you get into their system for a company, you are not changing. So it has that here and there thing again. Um, Technology is hard to understand, hard to predict because you don't know how this is going to play out in the coming years. But again, I mean, you are not changing. I mean, as you said before, Excel, Word, PowerPoint are things that they've been they've been here through the years and not really have came close to getting them out of the system. It's important to
Yeah.
go. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, yeah, go ahead. Like even with like things like Google coming out with the Google Suite, and they have similar, Google Sheets, and you could use kind of the same stuff, but like for business, they haven't, shifted away from Microsoft. They haven't, not everybody has gone to Google products, even though they, for consumers, they sometimes give something that's useful. But yeah, like somehow Microsoft has managed to stay sticky despite the odds and despite all the competitors out there. So go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I point out, it's very important to go segment by segment to be able to predict how this company is going to play out. I personally find it, again, very difficult because there's so many segments that are being attacked from different perspectives that to me is it will go to that too hard pile, this company. But again, I do see all the strong parts that they have, and definitely a great, I mean, it's the second market cap in the world. So I mean, obviously a great company, great products, but to me it's hard to understand. How
Yeah,
about you,
for
Michelle?
sure. Yeah, it is also hard for me to understand. And I haven't invested in Microsoft before, but if even though I've been using it all my life, like I guess I took it somewhat for granted, and maybe I should study it some more to see if I can get it in my circle of competence as a business. So as a consumer and something, I get it, but as a if we're thinking as an investor, we have to try to see what Warren Buffett has seen in this, because I think Berkshire's invested in Microsoft, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe they're not. Maybe I'm making that up. But I know that Berkshire's invested a little bit in Amazon. So you would think, if they see the same value like Amazon Web Services, they should see the same value in Microsoft with the Azure cloud. So you would think if Microsoft is a Buffett style company, maybe they might consider that as well. So it'd be interesting to see how Microsoft might evolve to maybe they'll become a player in AI. I think about what could Microsoft do wrong, or what could they not do to stay competitive. Like if we think like Charlie Munger, he might say invert. Like what is the sell case for Microsoft to see where could they maybe stumble? And if we don't see that being a realistic risk, if they're maybe not going to stumble anytime soon, maybe that gives them more credit to see if this could be a really good investment in the future if it's at a right price. Like as with anything, none of this is advice, and we always have to think about, as great as a company is, it's only a good investment if you get it at the right price. So that's a question everybody will need to figure out. So with that, do you have any closing thoughts, Alejandro, before we wrap up?
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, it's you have to invest at the right price. So yeah, I agree with you. That's
So thank you so much, Alejandro, for sharing your knowledge about Microsoft. I know it's hard, but thank you for doing a great job.
Thank you, Michelle. It was great.
All right, bye-bye.